So they took me into this, what seemed to be a abandoned building with very small rooms. And if I stood up, I can touch the ceiling. It was like a open grave.
The fragile peace in Yugoslavia is more fragile than ever. Truce talks between federal officials and the Republic of Slovenia broke down again
Survivor
today.
of human trafficking. It's considered among the fastest growing criminal industries in the
Female
world.
recruiters, they entrap the girls and enslave them as prostitutes.
Welcome to Heroes Behind Headlines. I'm your host, Ralph Pizzullo. Today's guest is Lurata Lyon. Her story is one of sheer terror and unbelievable courage and survival. She's one of the few human trafficking victims who have managed to escape, and one of even fewer who have come forward to talk about it. Unfortunately, Lurata's story is not unique to her, as vulnerable people are always the ones preyed upon, particularly in war zones like the current situation in Ukraine. Following the breakup of communist Yugoslavia in 1991, different parts of the country started to declare their independence, among them the Slovenians, the Croatians, and the Bosnians. Ethnic Serbs living in those newly formed countries protested and were supported by the Serbian government of Slobodan Milosevic. Fighting broke out between ethnic Christian Serbs and mostly Muslim Bosniaks in late 1992 and quickly spread throughout the region, characterized by shelling of towns and cities, ethnic cleansing, and systematic mass rape, mainly perpetrated by the Serbs and to a lesser extent Croat and Bosnian forces. Lurata's story begins as paramilitary Serb units enter her town in Serbia with the intent of cleansing it of its mostly Muslim population. Lurata Lyon is today's hero behind the headlines.
I was born and raised in former Yugoslavia, in a very small town.
So west Serbia?
Yeah, that's right,
Okay.
southwest Serbia.
Okay.
What I remember is as at the age of, let's just say about 11 or 12, is when our country started separating into different, one whole country as Yugoslavia managed to get into small pieces. And we just saw it happening so slowly and sort of spreading out to the point where it did get on our doorstep. And
Yes.
I think that was the most frightening thing because we knew it was coming.
Yes.
We just didn't know when or how long before. Mm-hmm. So we lived in fear. Pretty much.
This had to do with ethnic and religious differences, correct?
Yeah, it got really complicated. It went from, I think they used a religion initially to start things off. I had to do a lot with ethnicity as well. The history takes us back to the Turks, and so they left Muslims behind, or people converted to Islam then. So we've got the Muslims and we got the Orthodox Christians. And we all lived amongst each other, but then when the problem started, we turned against each other.
Wow.
So I think they used religion and then they used the ethnicity.
Right. How old were you when the violence and the ethnic strife and religious strife started to affect your town and your family?
Specifically, our town, it was, I was 18. Our town was singled out for ethnic cleansing. It was going to be the biggest massacre that had ever been, bigger than the one they did in Bosnia. And it was terrifying, really, being marched into the crease of the mountain with the soldiers just marching on and pushing the elderly and the kids screaming, and in sort of a dawn kind of situation when it was dark and it was just cold and
horrible. Soldiers came into your village and basically marched everybody out of their homes into the mountains.
Yeah, my parents have a home where it's sort of on the outskirts of the town, of the little village, and you sort of overlook all these fields and you can see the main road leading into the town. So you could see all these big vans filled with soldiers, and then as they offloaded, and the first house, I mean, it was just a wicked,
horrible,
a horrible, witchy kind of
yeah,
move to just get people out of their home and being dragged, and pregnant women and small babies, and
oh my God.
but it was just the three of us. It was my mum and dad and I,
Yeah,
and then slowly we just gathered people as we went along, and we stuck together. You see, we all know each other back home. It's because it's such a small town, and my dad being the doctor and my mum the professor, so we sort of know each other. Our walk towards the mountain got slower because people obviously weren't walking as fast. But eventually we reached there. I managed to spot my uncle, my dad's only brother at that time, and I grabbed him and I said, "Stay with us," and his wife as well, and my grandfather, and we all sort of walked together. We knew it was the end, so we wanted to sort of stick together, holding hands. And
oh my God. So you expected all to be shot, basically.
We all knew we were going to die.
Oh my God. Oh.
Yeah. So we go into the mountains, and because we were the last because we were at the edge of the town, we reached sort of last, and my uncle, bless his soul, he was a trader. That's all he knew of farming. To imagine my uncle, just to give you guys an idea, he was a bit like John Wayne, and looked like him, walked like him, talked like him, and he just wanted to do a deal. He put his foot down and he said, "I'm going to make a deal." And my dad, being the logical one, is like, "Brother, we're dying. Can we just..." He said, "No, brother, no, I'm not giving up." And he literally didn't give up. So he confronted one of the soldiers and he said, "I want to know, how much does it take for you to spare the town?" And he pushed my uncle away so much so that he almost went flying back. And my uncle went back again. He said, "Listen, brother, they're going to hunt you down. Is this what you want? Is this what you want, what you've done in Bosnia? Let me just pay you. I have more money than you can wish for. You'll be set for life." So he literally bribed them. And it's so hard to believe, but seeing it is believing it. It was the most magical thing that he's ever done for everyone. To this day, they all mention him. He paid off the army for that night. He just wanted to spare everyone.
Wow.
We weren't certain that this was going to work, but they sort of thought that my uncle was bluffing. And so he went into this van, and my mum went with him to help him, because she was a very athletic woman and fierce. And she said, "I'll come and help." So she went digging into his garden where he had hid all this gold and cash. And the reason I'm saying this is nothing dodgy, but we didn't have banks that were banks that you could
trust.
You have nowadays you can trust.
Right. So he just buried it in his backyard. Yeah.
A bit of humor there, yeah. So
yeah.
then they went back to his house and dig the gold out.
Yeah, and he had it, and it was real.
He had it, and luckily they kept the word. I mean, it would have been...
They honored that.
They honored that.
Key, right?
It was. Because they could have easily just taken it and then just do everything else they're supposed to do. But they honored it, and then they walked away.
Wow.
But
they
just
said, packed up back into their vans and drove away.
They just drove away and stayed. They said, "Do not move." So we were all sitting there. We just heard, because I stayed behind in the crowd, and I could hear the walkie-talkie thing saying, "Everybody just get your arms together." Arms meaning guns, and just get in your vans and just leave the crowd. Ask them to wait there for half an hour before they move. So we all just stayed still. I think I have a suspicious thing that maybe they wanted everyone to stay there because the town was full of people back home can have guns. It's a bit like in America.
Right.
Yeah.
So they'd run home and get their guns, and
they probably thought they're going to do that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we stayed there for half an hour, and then suddenly my dad said, "We're going to have to go home sometime and see whether your mom and uncle is still alive." And so we returned home and reunited with him.
Wow, what a moment!
It was a real moment. I just couldn't believe his garden had been digged out. It's like a graveyard opened up. never knew my uncle was that rich. I knew he was rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he had literally saved the lives of everyone in the town.
He saved everyone's life. It was
Wow.
such a heroic way for him to have gone, because he died soon after.
Lurata's uncle may have spared the lives of everyone in the town for the time being, but they understood that the Serbian militias could return at any time. She and her family had the very unsettling experience of not feeling safe in their own country. As a teenage girl, Lurata was particularly vulnerable, so her father started to plan for her escape to a safer place. Little did they know that her situation would only get worse.
Our trouble really didn't stop there, unfortunately. The soldiers were coming into the our village. I would like to just speak on our behalf, and raping at will and torturing the elderly and taking the men, and they never coming back. So
Yeah.
they never
So
returned.
they came back. They didn't honor the promise.
They came back, but it was like a slow death kind of.
Like a few at a time would come into the town and grab
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, so my dad, he had witnessed what's happening, and he came home in total panic, and he said, look, he said, I can't have you here. You're going to have to run away. I looked at him, and I was young, and I'm like, Dad, where do you want me to go? I mean, it's nowhere for me to go. He's like, no. Well, I know a way. We're going to do this way. I'm like, and I didn't really like speaking back to my dad. I was very close to him, and he's my hero, but I was really scared what he was proposing. His idea was for me he was going to lead me a little bit through the mountain, and the rest for me to follow on my own. He said, you've got to leave home. I can't watch you being raped. And my mom said, well, I'm not going to leave you. So she decided to stay with him. She said, you're going to have to do this on your own. So I went through the mountains that lead into Kosovo, and the reason for that was, just to give some background on it, why Kosovo, why not Macedonia? Macedonia's borders were shut. Kosovo borders were shut, but at the same time, it was easier to smuggle myself through the mountains because it wasn't a proper border yet, because Kosovo used to belong to Serbia. However, at the same time, the United Nations had already entered Kosovo, and they were peacekeepers, and they had Red Cross there. They had a bit more going on for people like myself. And my dad thought, because I speak the language, because I speak two other languages fluently.
You speak Albanian and
I
Serbian.
speak Serbian as my first language, because we learn it at school, and Albanian actually side by side. And
also Kosovo is primarily a Muslim country, correct?
Primarily Muslim country with Albanian speaking. And they had the Serbian speaking as well, and they've got Catholics as well that speak Albanian, for example. So it's a little bit of a complicated situation down there.
But at this point, it was being protected by the UN, so it was considered a safer area than where you were.
A lot safer, yeah. NATO was patrolling the borders. They were just on the other side, because I remember when I reached the other side eventually, I saw the NATO troops, because they looked very different to what I'm used to. They had blue sort of helmet on the side sticking out. They were bigger, like more, I don't know, they were very well built and strong and in different ethnicities, and I knew that it was them. But I didn't speak to them. I just got on the next bus, and I just wanted, because my dad said, if you get there safely, catch the first bus that goes to the capital, because I want you at the capital where you can find shelter, like from Red Cross, or he said there must be something for the refugees. They're running away from this side now.
Okay, so
I listened.
you leave you leave at night. You leave your home at night.
I leave just before it gets too dark, because I didn't want to leave because it's not very far away. I mean, by the time it got almost dark, I reached the other side. So
it just took you a couple hours to get to Kosovo. over the mountains.
Yeah, it's not far at all.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
really it's not far at all.
And you took
Yeah.
what, like a backpack, a suitcase?
No, just a backpack.
Just a
Just a
backpack.
small little bag, and I didn't really have much in it. It was just a picture of my parents, water, and a bit of food that my mum gave me. I didn't have much with me at all.
Yeah, you must have been scared to death.
It was an adventure, as a young child, you're scared and you think, oh
Sure.
gosh, I just need to survive.
Right. So you get to the other side, you have money for a bus, and you take the bus to... Yeah.
Pristina is a capital of Kosovo.
Okay. And that's
Yeah.
where you were headed?
That's where I needed to head to, yeah. And that's where I was heading on the bus. Yeah.
So you get on the bus, nobody bothers you, or are you...
No, I sort of keep myself to myself. I speak the language and I can correct the dialect and pronunciation, so I sounded very local, so they didn't really pay attention. And when I reached to Pristina, I really didn't know where I was going. So the first thing I see was a bar, and it looked a bit like an English pub. Never seen anything like that before. So I just entered through the doors, and when I entered, it was warm and noisy and loud with people laughing, and it was so different to where I just came from.
Yeah, I can
And as I
imagine.
look up, the entire room was filled with United Nations troops, like police officers. What I recognize now, who was the police officers and the soldiers, and they were all in police officers' uniform. And this particular bar happened to be next to the police station in Pristina. So hence why there was loads of police officers there, drinking after their duties. And I just went to the barman and I said, could I please have a glass of water? I was really thirsty at that point. He gave me some water and I drank it and I walked outside because I didn't feel like I belonged there. I was so young. So I went out and I thought, gosh, where am I going to go now? I mean, it's so daunting. I just collapsed to my sort of knees and I leaned back onto the wall of the bar and I just think, oh my God, what am I going to do now? I totally lost and thinking about my mum and dad and the thought that I would never see them again. But luck had it, Rolf, that two police officers, and I would love to share this so much with you guys because they are American police officers. They mean so much to me. They spotted that I was in distress and they walked out to see.
Do you want to tell us their names, or can you tell us their names?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's Peter O'Brien and Brian O'Reeves. They walked out with a translator. I couldn't speak any English at that point. And they asked the translator to ask me if I was okay in Albanian. And I said, I am not okay. And I said, I'm from Serbia. So I explained them my story. And I said, I just need to get to the Red Cross. I said, I would be grateful if you guys can lead me or help me get there. To my surprise, they didn't seem very rushed to take me to where I was requesting. They had a chat amongst each other, and their decision was that it wasn't right for me to go there. And they said, but because they realized I started panicking and crying, and I'm like, well, where am I going to go if I need to go? And the translator said, look, they're just saying it's not safe, so they're suggesting, if you feel okay with it, do you want to take shelter in their kitchen? They've got a couch and you can just crash for the night until they speak to their superior and then find out what to do next, because you are from Serbia, you're not meant to be here. And I think they were worried that I'm going to be misunderstood for something that I wasn't. So they were trying to be precise on the steps.
So they were looking out for your welfare.
Exactly, as one should, really. They wanted to make the right decision, and they did the right decision in the end. So yeah, they gave me shelter, and it was really daunting for me to accept that, but I had no other option. And I look at these two guys. It was a 2-bedroom apartment, 1 bathroom, kitchen with a tiny bit of balcony on the ground floor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you go there and you're probably still scared to death, but you're probably exhausted as well, right?
Absolutely shattered. They took me in and they were very polite. The translator had to stay there because they realized I don't speak any English. And they gave me some stuff that I can cover myself with, and they showed me where the bathroom was. And Brian was a little bit more hesitant and more serious. And Peter was he was such a clown and trying to always cheer me up. So they gave me that room and the translator said, look, there is no rush. They're going to speak to their superior tomorrow, but you're most welcome to stay until you feel comfortable and you know what you want to do next.
Were you able to communicate with your parents at this point?
No, because the lines were down.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they didn't know where you were.
No, they didn't know what was happening at that point with me at all. So they gave me that shelter that night, and the next day they had to leave early to go to work. But me being me, I'm OCD, so I like tidying up. And so I got up and I started tidying up their place and cleaning, hoovering, mopping, and hand washing their uniforms that they have put there to be washed eventually. Found some food in the fridge. I started cooking. By the time they came home, it was like it went from a bachelor pair to, hi boys, welcome back. Mummy's home cooking for you.
You're going to be taken care of now.
I was like their little sister, just doing stuff for them. They were shocked. They came back. They're like, oh my God. And they were speaking a bit Albanian. They had learned the language. They were like, wow, this is amazing. They were really chuffed. And from that point on, they said to the translator, look, just let her know she can stay here. I'm sure the war in Serbia will settle down, and then let's see what we can do. But in the meantime, we don't want to leave her at home on her own. So they took me to their friends' houses and watched football. I didn't even know what they were talking about.
Right.
The lads just getting drunk, and I was just like, okay. So it was such a good adventure. It was a beautiful time with them. I really appreciated them giving so much attention, love, care, and they became my family.
Wow.
But it was everything just turned upside down over a period of a minute, 2 minutes that I went outside without their permission.
Although the United Nations had sent thousands of forces to monitor the fighting in the region, they had very little authority and had instructed their troops not to get directly involved in the conflict. Peter and Brian were two American members of the UN peacekeeping force. They didn't take Lurata to the Red Cross because they didn't think she'd be safe there. She was a 17-year-old girl who didn't speak English. They thought she would be safer staying with them.
Brian and Peter had a thing. They didn't want me to leave their apartment on my own, and I never really did. But sometimes we had zero electricity, so they would cut off the electricity. So I looked outside of the window, and I thought, well, what could happen if I just walk like a few meters away just to get a magazine to read, because I was getting crazy. I had to do something, read.
Yeah, you're just inside all
crazy.
the time. Yeah.
Exactly. And so everything in the house was left as I was, and I wasn't intending to leave. I just put my shoes on and I just walked out to buy this magazine, and it was just the most horrific. I didn't even see it where it came from. It was this van, totally pitch black, blackout windows, everything. It just pulled in front of me, and I was like, whoa, dude, I'm thinking in my head, you're on top of the pavement. What on earth is going on? They opened the sliding door, and they started shouting and swearing, we've got the bitch, we've got her. And I'm thinking, what, me? Why am I now the bitch?
Yeah,
what have I done? Who are you guys? I'm thinking in my head, but I'm not saying. I didn't even have time to see anything. They pulled this black thing over my head, grabbed me on each side of my shoulders, and dragged me into this van, onto the floor of the van, what smelled like petrol. And I sort of confused. I'm thinking, oh gosh, what the... like, please wake up, this is not happening. And they're like, we've got to, come on, let's go. They're speaking in Albanian. And I'm like, this is a mistake. Shut up. I'm like, oh my God. It didn't take long. The van drove off and they're talking, they're cheering, and they're all excited that they reached this, whatever they're supposed to reach. Clearly it was me. Within a short distance, about 5-10 minutes later, the van stopped. So they, again, come out of the van, grab me, start dragging me. My feet are literally, my toes, shoes on my toes are dragging the floor. I could just hear all these noises, and everything is heightened because I can't see. So my ears, everything, the touch, everything is heightened. I'm like, what? Or no, what's going? I'm like, oh my God, this is not happening. And they dragged me in, and they're like, oh, the boss is going to be so happy. The boss. I'm like, who's the boss?
Yeah. What is this?
Yeah. Put me into this room. It smelled so heavy in there. It was very daunting smell, like old stuff. And it was an office. When they took my hoodie off, I was on my knees. And I looked up and I'm like, oh my God, there's so many men here. And the guy, the boss, in front of me at the table. And I'm on my knees and they just holding me there like with my arms back as if I was going to do anything. They said, look, boss, we've got her. We told you we will. The spy is here. Like, what? Spy? I said, guys, they wouldn't even let me speak because I speak their language. I'm like, what spy? And before I knew it, there was a slap going through my face. I'm like, okay, I better stop this. The guy stood up from his chair. He stumbled sort of across to me slowly, limping away. He's got a limp. And he looked at me, pulled my head up. He said, right, boys, now since we've got the spy, rape her. And when he said those words, that the actual command, what was about to happen, it was just, I couldn't believe my heart rate started going crazy. They flipped me on my back, and in like seconds, every single clothes I was wearing, it was ripped. God. It didn't even touch me, like as if my body was a knife and he was cutting them through.
Yeah.
And I screamed so loud. I was so scared. I thought, oh God, just take me. Gosh, this is too much. I screamed. And when they literally like physically pinned me down so I don't move, I screamed. And I don't know why I said this. Maybe I was just meant to say it, but I screamed. I was like, I'm a virgin. Please don't do this. And the guy, the boss, he's like, whoa, we got to stop. And everyone just stopped at his command. He was just like God to them. And I was there like naked. I'm thinking, oh my God, I need to cover myself. He said, you know what? He said, we have just stumbled across a precious cargo.
Wow.
I'm like, cargo? I mean, I was young. I didn't quite know what he was trying to say. I had no idea human trafficking was at large, sex trafficking, organ harvesting, all of this. This is what he meant. This is what these guys were into business with. And so the guy stopped me, and therefore he called his girlfriend, because he had a family, he had children.
My God.
But he called his girlfriend, that I assume it was his girlfriend because a lot was happening with her, to groom me. To prepare me for who they were going to sell eventually, whoever is going to buy me.
How many people, Lurata, were in the room when this happened? Like 4 or 5, a dozen?
It was 3 on this side and 1 further away, so that's 4. Him 5 and 2 on this side, 7. Around 7 people.
Oh my God. So he says stop, and they just all stop.
They all stop.
He's the boss.
He's the boss. He's still the boss. And so therefore they sort of threw something on me, and they're like, come on, you get up. And he said, take care of her. No more leaving marks and scars and stuff on her.
Okay.
And so therefore I knew that they weren't going to beat me up, at least. So I was relieved of that. But to be honest, Ralph, sometimes a physical pain is a lot easier to heal and accept it. At least you know that why it's happening. But mental pain is psychological abuse. This is just another one.
That's horrible.
So yeah, these guys decided to keep me and groom me, and I was with them for quite a few weeks.
Okay.
3 to 4 weeks.
So
to just
are you getting
me.
a sense of what is going on now? Like what they're preparing you for?
Yeah, I start getting a sense that this is just weird. But I thought it was about him more than anything else. I thought maybe
you thought
he's
you were
preparing
getting
me for
groomed
himself.
for him. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but then when they started there was girls coming in and out, beaten up, and I could just hear them screaming and stuff. And I thought, this is not normal. I mean, clearly he's not touching them himself. So why me? Why am I here? What? I asked eventually. I did ask, but much later, because I didn't know why they wanted to ship me to Albania. So after they got me to certain standard, and it was really detailed. I mean, I had to watch him and his girlfriend what to do in terms of to perform, I guess, for whoever they were preparing me for.
So
it
like
was a
perform
lot of
sexually. So he's preparing you.
Yeah, so I had to watch live sexual interaction between him and his girl and watch. It's not like you couldn't close your eyes, because you can't close your eyes no matter how you feel sick with everything that's going on in front of you. You had to literally pay attention. It was like a lesson.
These are lessons. You better learn this. Yeah.
Yeah, to the point that one night, because I was sleeping and they had me in this apartment, and the apartment was in the middle of the town, in the central of town, on sort of 4th floor, and it had 1 bedroom, 1 living room, small little hallway, and then a bathroom and a tiny bit of kitchen, which I never saw, but there was a door. And so I was sleeping there. It was my place. He kept me there. It was for me to be there.
This is still in Pristina. This is still in the capital.
In the center of Pristina, yes.
And you were the only girl being held there?
Just me there. But then sometimes there would be, if I was in my bedroom where I slept, I would hear girls coming in and out, screaming, being beaten up. And then I was terrified to hear what was happening to them. It was awful.
According to the organization Human Rights First, they estimate that there are over 5 million people sex trafficked each year worldwide. This huge and lucrative business yields roughly $150 billion a year. Organ trafficking is much harder to measure because it's so underground. Estimates range from $1 to several $billion in profits from organ harvesting a year. According to the FBI, there are anywhere from 400 to 800,000 people who are trafficked in the United States each year. So you're there in this house, you're being trained. So what happens next? Did you find out who this person was or where they were going to ship you to?
I don't know who the person was as such by name, but
yeah.
They just said it was a sheikh or something, they said.
A sheikh? Yeah.
It must have been somewhere, some sick-minded person that wanted a virgin. And
then after he used you, they were going to kill you and sell your organs.
Yeah, they were going to take my organs, and that was going to be the end of me. But yeah, when they felt like I was ready, or the client was ready, or requesting me, we went into their car and we started driving towards the border, which leads Kosovo with Albania. And it was a long drive, a couple of hours drive, and as we reached the border with Kosovo, Albania, we got stopped because the border was shut, and it was the Italian troops that were patrolling that particular point, and they said that the border is shut, nobody can go through. And I said to them, why are we going to Albania? I asked. I mean, I had the courage to ask because I had guns pointing on both of my sides as if, I mean, who did I look to them? I wasn't some kind of trained assassin.
Ninja
so
or
they were holding
something.
guns on me. And they said, don't you get it? We are taking you to the next stop, because from there, then obviously Albania was a free country, so they had the shipment, they had the airplanes.
Right, they could ship you anywhere in the world. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
It was very easy, and the organ harvesting station was based in Albania in the mountains, because it was discovered. I've been doing lots of research since I escaped. So everything was based on the other side. They had the doctors on the other side and everything. And so that didn't happen. The transfer didn't happen because the border got shut. And the boss said, we've got to stop in the next town. We need to eat dinner and we need to take a rain check for tonight. Just need to rest. So he took...
this is the same boss from the beginning. Boss. Okay.
Yeah, because he's sort of known as a boss anyway. So... yeah, the boss took me to dinner, all of us, and I didn't really eat. I didn't feel like eating. And then he took me to his room that he'd rented, because he didn't want to leave my side. He was always by me. And
it was your valuable property to him. Yep.
Yeah, it was really weird, because we sat in the lounge. It was like an apartment, and his room was next door. And he said to me, and I remember it like it was today, he sat on my left-hand side on this little, like a couch, little seat, and he leaned over, and I was literally on the edge of the sofa. I was so scared of him. He said, look, he said, if you could give yourself to me, all of this will end. Just be mine. He said, I've grown fond of you, and I have fallen in love for some reason. He said, I don't know why, but if you're mine, then I wouldn't sell you on. I looked at him in shock. He said, but you have to give yourself to me. It has to be from your heart. I'm not going to force you. Oh my God, Ralph. I looked at him and I'm thinking, how could I ever want to be with this man, monster?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, in his sick way, mind, he had some kind of feelings for me, whether they were sexual or they were just an obsession or intriguing thing to find out what was I about. But anyway, he took me to bed and he said, I'll convince you. So he started undressing me and I lied there like a statue. I was like, oh gosh, please don't touch me. I felt sick to my stomach. Just him next to me, he's breathing next to my ear. I was like, oh, vile. And eventually he undressed me to the point I had turned my back on him. I didn't want anything to do with him. I was refusing him with my heart and soul and my body. I was like, you're not having this. You're going to have to either take it or you're not having it. And he didn't take me by force, but he pleasured himself behind my back. And when he was done, oh, he said, you are so disappointing. He said, now I'm just going to have to sell you. To be honest, Ralph, it's really hard to explain what goes on through your mind at that point. You sort of want it to be over, but you don't have that switch button. It's nothing you can do. And it's just going on, a nightmare never ending.
You can't escape. Yeah, you can't escape.
Yeah, you can't escape it. And you have to roll with the punches. You're hoping sort of that something is going to happen. And then the next day the border was still shut. So he said, okay, right, to his team, not to me. He said, we're going to have to go back into Pristina because I've got some business now. She has to come with us. She's not leaving my side. Everybody got in the van. So, but as we led on towards Pristina, we had to stop over, 1 or 2 stopovers, one for coffee, one for lunch or something. He had some stuff to do in these places. I don't know what he was dealing with. But I had to do something. In my mind, I said, you can't just, you're going to die anyway. You got to do something. I was talking to myself. So I would just, as we were sitting at the table, I just get up and run towards the toilet, and then all the guard would run after me. And so the staff of the restaurants and the bar, they were like, something's not right here. I think they started seeing, and when they'd reach me, because I would just walk away from the table, they would grab me so hard, push me, or grab my hair and push me into the toilet and say, here, you shouldn't have done this. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to make a scene. Everywhere we stop, I'm making a scene. That was my mission. But I really wanted to tell somebody, please, just call the police. I'm in trouble. Yeah. But police never showed up. There was no one. I don't think anyone called the police, or like it happens in the movies and you get escaping and, it's all over and you're like, yay. So got in the van, and on the way back home, we reached this apartment just before midnight, maybe 20
This is
to
the
midnight.
same apartment.
Same apartment. And he got in there and he's sort of tired. And then all of a sudden, just before midnight, and I remember these specifically because these are big moments, big change. It's a shift that happens. And it's, for me, so vivid still. And he's standing there in the hallway. His phone rings and he's talking to someone. He's like, what? What do you mean trouble? She's caused us trouble. What? So he's having this conversation with someone. He puts the phone down and he turns to his team and says, right, we got to go. And then he calls one of the youngest boys that was with us at all times. He said, listen to me, you idiot. Your job is to rape her and kill her. I need to get out of here. I was shocked. I was like, what, now? Now this is happening now? I'm dying now? I'm literally dying now. Like, it could happen any minute. It's a split second that the gun would go on my head and I'm done. And my heart rate started racing so high. I started panicking. My tongue swelled up. My lips swelled up. I dry mouth. I was like hyperventilating. He leaves. He shuts the door. He calls me every name under the sun. And the guy looks at me and said, I'm sorry, this has to happen.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. I said, and I knew his name. So I addressed him by the name. I said, please. I said, I know I'm dying. I know. I said, I don't know what I need. I need to pray. He was like, pray? I said, yeah, I need to pray. I need to pray. And I was so convinced I needed to pray. I've never needed to pray in my life like I needed to pray that night. And I went straight into the living room. As you walk into the living room, you'd see the small TV, a sofa on the left-hand side with a table, glass table. And next to the TV, there is nothing. There is a gap. I go straight to that corner, ahead from the door, and I slam myself onto the ground on my knees. And I start praying, and I'm not even praying in any conventional way. I just put my head down on the floor, like a fetus position. I'm just saying, this is not the end. It can't be the end. What is my mom and dad going to think about? I mean, they're never going to find out. How did I die? Am I still alive? Have I forgotten them? The only child. Even if I was 100 children to them, they would still wonder, what happened to her? I know they would have always thought that. Because I know what it feels now as a parent. You'd want to know what happened to your kid.
Of course.
And I laid there and I'm praying and I just felt this warmth in my heart and soul. And I said, God, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. I was seeking for forgiveness for them.
Gee. Wow.
At the same time as I was seeking for myself. And at that point, the guy said, I'm going in the bathroom. I need to wash myself because if I'm going to rape you, I want to... He was a Muslim, so he wanted to clean himself. He walked away and I just heard his footsteps and I'm praying, oh my God, this is my life. I don't remember much. I didn't live long. But it's okay. It was, maybe you've chosen me. So I'm talking to God. At that point, I hear this cling on the glass table. People would think, it can't be possible. Believe me, it happened. He left the keys and he left the gun.
Oh my God.
And I lifted my head just to the side, on my left-hand side, and I just let me have a peek. What was this clinging? Because it couldn't enter my mind that what it was. I saw the gun and I got so scared when I saw the gun. I'm like, oh my God, it's a gun. And I'm like, oh, it's the keys as well. So I got myself up super slowly. creeping towards the table. And I reached for the keys. I looked at the gun. I'm like, I'm not touching the gun. It's not me. I don't want to do anything with it. It was 2 keys and different sizes, just different. And now what you have to imagine, the main door, it was 2 doors from the outside. So if somebody was going to the 5th floor, they would think it's a normal apartment, which it was. It was a wooden door on the outside. It was totally normal door. And attached to it was a prison kind of door. And I thought, okay, well, people would think, people are trying to protect their valuables because during the war they were breaking in.
Right, like an iron door with
Yeah, so it was like like a rails and stuff, but you wouldn't think anything of it. You just think, oh, people protecting their valuables. So when I opened the first door, I never paid attention how they opened doors and what happened. I opened the first door. I was like, okay, this is good, because from the inside just looked a wooden door. Once I opened this, I pulled it in, and I see it. Oh, I'm like, that's not part of the same door. So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got this rails here. What am I going to do? So I've got the other key, and I'm shaking at that point because the guy is still in the bathroom, which happens to be next to the door. And I'm trying to open this door, and I'm doing it. I'm turning it towards the right-hand side, which is how the door should work, like the one that worked before. But apparently, these kind of doors, they open the opposite direction.
Okay.
So you twist it towards the left-hand side. So because I was trying to fiddle with it, and I'm getting all anxious, why is it not opening in my head? I'm like, ah! So I tilted towards the left, and all of a sudden, the door opened, and I was like, oh my God. So I just ran down those stairs as fast as I could. Obviously, the guy heard me at the back, and he started screaming, "You bitch, I'm gonna kill you." And he's going, obviously he got the gun. I'm not stopping. I'm flying down the stairs as fast as I could. And when I reached the door right at the bottom, the door was open, or was there no door? I can't remember, but it was an open space. He literally caught up with me. He punched me so hard on my jaw, I went flying onto the main road.
Wow.
So luckily it was after midnight, just after midnight at that point, because if it had been in the middle of the day, a car would have hit me and I would have died. But when I fell onto this road, I sort of tried to get my bearings because I didn't know what had happened. It's just like a blackout. I turned around to look away from where the guy was, and I see this flashing lights of a car, like a Jeep, same as my 2 American police officers had it. It was parking, so I could see the flashlights at the back with a brake going on, and I think the guy was parking the car. And I screamed so loud, that's all I could do. And luckily, it was a police officer. It was an Italian police officer.
Wow.
And he heard me. So he got out of this car to see where the screaming is coming from. And my guy that was with me, started shooting. So the police officer started shooting, but I'm staying on the ground, and I'm just crawling like Spider-Man on the ground, just towards the police officer. And I'm thinking, I'm not getting up here, just need to stay low. And eventually I reached towards the police officer. The police officer reached me, so he met me sort of midway. And then he grabbed me so hard, and he pulled me towards the van, put me behind the front door. He opened the door, he put me behind the door to protect me, reached inside, took this little phone walkie-talkie thing and called all units. All units to the rescue. He told the location. I don't know, it didn't even go seconds. I felt like it wasn't even seconds. It felt so quick. Must have been 5 to 10 jeeps arrived, and you can imagine they all had at least two police officers inside. And the translator is trying to find out what's going on. I'm like, don't touch me, don't touch me. All I could say is like, don't touch me. I said, they tried to kill me. They're on the 4th floor. So I guess they busted their place. And I don't know if they caught the guy. I just wanted to find Brian and Peter. That's all I wanted to do. And they took me to the police station. They said that we need to go for an interview. They sat me down and they appointed this really amazing police officer from Kosovo, which was my dad's age at that time. And he sat across me, and before he said anything, he said, "Can I hug you?" I said, "No, I don't want to be touched." He's like, "I'm very sorry," he said, "but," he said, "I just want to hug you," because he already knew I was mentioning names as I got into the police station. It's them, it's him, and I'm giving all the names out. I just didn't want to waste any time. I just need to go. So he was paying attention. So he's like, "I know," he said, "who you have escaped." And he said, "Just so you know," he said, "we've been trying to get them arrested for so long. We don't have evidence. We don't have survivors." He said, "Just for your information, you are the only hope, the only survivor we have." He said, "Your interview is going to be used in court, and we would like you to appear in court." I said, "I don't think so."
It was too soon. Yeah.
I was so scared. I know it was a chicken kind of me to say that, but I said, "I just want to go." And I gave my interview. They gave me this case number, and they've written it on a piece of paper. I still have it. Certain things I managed to keep. And they said, "Who do you have in town?" I said, "I have 2 police officers' friends." I gave them their names. I said, "It's Brian O'Reeves and Peter O'Brien." They knew the unit and they knew where they lived. They called Peter. Peter answered the phone that late at night, and they said they were bringing your girl back home, and you need to sort it out. She's not safe in town. So Peter stayed with me all night. He didn't even wake up Brian. Then when Brian woke up in the morning, he was so shocked to see me. He hugged me, he cried. He's like, "What? We thought you left us." So they literally thought I had left them. But unfortunately, that night, obviously, Peter looked after me. He bathed me, made sure I was clean, and got me some clean clothes. And he said, "Unfortunately," the next day with the translator, "you are not safe here. We are not safe here, because they knew you were living with us. So we need to change apartment, but so do you. You need to go back home."
At this point, Lurata had already been through hell and back. Returning to her hometown in Serbia, she expected a warm reunion with her family, but found that the situation there had only worsened. Tattooed, white-sneakered Serbian militiamen, who were basically thugs, hired by the Serbian government, were there to extend their terror over the Muslim population.
I took the chance to go back. I said, "Well, look, death for death. I'd much rather die from our own troops. Maybe a gun is better than all this torment." So I went back, and then I reached the town. It was like a ghost town, Ralph. Yeah. It was, you could see a bit of smoke here and there. You could see holes through people's walls where they've been bombed, and the house is half ruined. And I'm walking, I'm thinking, nobody here. My God, is everybody still alive? It's like, creepy.
Oh, God.
I creeped into our garden, walked in. So I looked, there's no one there. And then I thought, well, let me have a look at the basement. So I looked in the basement. I opened the door. They were sort of just talking to each other and wrapped up and sort of scared. And they didn't know who had come or what was happening. I was like, "Mom, Dad, it's me." My mom is like, "Oh my God, no. I'm like, "What? What do you mean, no? I said, "I've got so much to tell you guys. Oh my God, I just wanted to just tell them and hug them." And she's like, started crying. "Oh no, you've come back." I'm like, "Dad, why is she so scared that I'm back? What's going on?" He's like, "Oh my God, my dear, So he's also mumbling and like, "Oh, you're not safe here." I'm like, "I'm not safe there. I'm not safe here. I just want to be with you guys."
Right.
And I didn't have chance to tell them what had happened to me at all. I just said, "I've been through so much. I can't wait to tell you." And then we hear this big truck in our garden making noise, and the people, and so just to give some context to the listeners, during the war, we had the actual legit army, and then it was recruits. They recruited the prisoners to make numbers. And the normal army wore the same normal stuff, boots, uniform. The army that was recruited just to serve during the war and kill at will had trainers on, sneakers, white sneakers. They all were the same sneakers. And I have tattoos myself, so I'm not against tattoos. But these guys were covered up to the neck, and you could just see them.
Gangster type guys, yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit too, and something I haven't seen before, just in movies. So it was these particular recruits that came into our garden that same evening, and they opened the gates, they've come in, and they grabbed me, they're like, "Oh, the spy has returned." They speaking in Serbian. I said, "What spy?" I said, "Guys, please don't start with this spying thing." I said, I ran away because I can't even trust my own people. I'm trying to say my dad. I said, "Dad, look, don't worry, Dad." I said, "I will explain it to them." I was talking like an adult, Ralph. The experience I had in Kosovo, it made me an adult.
Sure, of
so I was like, "Look, I'm just going to tell them what happened to me, okay? And surely they will see through me. I'm telling the truth." My dad is like, "What happened to you?" I'm like, "But this is what I mean." I said, "I had so much to tell you." I said, "I'll tell you when they free me, once I tell them." My mom is like in the garden, on her knees, screaming, "Oh my God."
Oh,
I'm like, "Just take care of her." I said, "I love you guys. I'm going to be back. I'll be back." I thought it wouldn't last more than 24 hours in
so
interrogation.
They take you away for
Took me off, put me in this van. "Ah, you spy, huh? You going against us." I'm like, "Guys, I'm not going against anyone." I said, "When we get to the station," I was thinking I'm going to the station.
Yeah.
I said, "I'll give my interview."
Yeah.
I said, "Police station, like a normal thing."
Legitimate, yeah.
They just laughing, "Ah, you bit, ah." I was like, oh gosh, here we go again. I had become immune to this nonsense by then. So they took me into this, what seemed to be a abandoned building in a mountain, which we see just sort of at a distance from my house, not far away at all. But it was totally abandoned building. It's almost like they kept where they kept animals or something, like a stables, but with very small rooms. They had doors, and it was almost like 2 meters long.
Okay.
And if I stood up, I can touch the ceiling.
Oh, tiny. So like a 5 foot room, 6 feet.
Tiny. It was like a open grave. So they took me into this, before they took me into my room where I was supposed to be kept, they took me into the interrogation room, sat me down, started beating me up. I'm like, "I'm telling you the truth." I said, "I can't, you're lying." So they wouldn't take my word for it. They beated me up to the point where they slipped my left ear, if you could see it. I mean, it has been stitched up, but it's split in half. And people think, because I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu martial art, people think it's because of that.
Okay.
But it's not. It's because it's been split in half when they punched me. They dislocated my jaw. They broke my nose. I lost a few teeth and dislocated my lower back.
Gee.
And that wasn't enough. Everything that happened. Then they branded me on my calf.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they took this metal, it was like a hashtag kind of sign, and they heated that up, and they said, "You see, this is going to go on you." I'm like, "I'm telling you the truth." At that point, I couldn't even see properly. My eyes were really like swollen up from being beaten up, and I was bleeding through my mouth. My ear was bleeding, couldn't hear on one ear. My jaw, I couldn't talk anymore properly. My jaw had gone sideways. And God. They want to brand me because they think that's going to get me to talk. I gave in. They branded me, and that's when I blacked out.
Yeah.
I instantly, my body blacked out.
What did they think you were? They called you a spy for the UN? Like, who did they think you were spying for?
They were thinking that I went to Kosovo, because I speak the language and we are Muslims, to spy to tell them where the bases were, how much army was around, what they were doing to the towns, and who's in charge, and that suspicious mind that messed up.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
it was the
crazy.
same with the Kosovans. They're like, you must be a Serbian girl. You've learned the language. You've come here pretending to be vulnerable. You just want to know where the Red Cross is. Why do you want to know where the Red Cross is? Why do you stay with the Americans? Are you a whore? Are you a bitch? Things like this. I mean, I didn't even want to mention these words because they are quite harsh.
Yeah, sure.
I'm a lady, but it's the ugly truth. So it became really...
So they were basically like just paranoid, crazy, very base people.
Mental. Very unhinged. What I witnessed, I thought what happened to me in Kosovo was pretty harsh, to be honest. But what I didn't realize is I was just about to be signed up to 6 months of that tiny room, what was to be my home for that 6 months, in darkness with no window, and it was bare floor. So they just gave me this blanket that they put on the floor and the clothes that I was wearing at that time, and I thought it was going to be 24 hours, and then I realized that wasn't going to end anytime soon. And Ralph, on those 6 months, they came into that room, they abused me psychologically, they put mice in the room, rats in the room. I'm still dealing with that phobia. It's become a phobia of mine now. They played mind games like, you leaving, and then as soon as I thought, okay, I'm leaving, they would start beating me up and then pull me apart and take me to the showers and spray me with cold water, with hot water, brush my hair 1 minute, beat me up the next minute, towel me down. I mean, it was messed up.
Oh my God.
And just sexual abuse was life-changing.
I'm sorry. That's horrible.
It was horrible. So I just remember those dark days, and sometimes people say, but Lurata, how did you manage? I said, I don't know. I wanted to die. I didn't want to live. I refused to eat their soups, beans, whatever they were giving me. I just wanted to end. I lost all the weight I had. I was literally skin and bones. So I thought maybe starvation, dehydration will take me. It didn't.
Yeah.
And then I learned something. I thought, well, clearly it's not my time to go, so I'm going to have to find the spirit here and find happiness in something that was an absolute nightmare. So I started singing to myself, and I thought, wow, I sing good.
Yeah.
And I would think of all the people that I admired in the world. Princess Diana, I would think of her, like, wow, princess. And Nelson Mandela is somebody I was very intrigued with his resilience, his human resilience. And I said, well, if he could do it, maybe I can too.
Wow.
I read a lot. I always refer to all these amazing people. And then I would think, well, my dad would want me to live. And my mom especially, she would be devastated if I died. And I'm strong, I can prove this, I'm strong. So I started sort of making myself understand that you can't force things to happen. You can only react to what's happening. And there was 2 options, react negatively or react positively.
Right.
And it was a choice that I had to make.
Right.
So therefore, when everything was happening, when the abuse, sexual abuse was happening, on those moments, I was never taught how to meditate or do hypnotherapy. I didn't even know what it was. But I was doing it. I was switching off and thinking all the amazing stuff as a child, playing in the garden with my cousins' football, and all the amazing books and my birthdays. And that would switch off my primitive mind to panic and my intelligent mind to kick in and say, everything is going to be okay. You can block this. It's okay. So I really taught myself some lessons from that time, and I just kept saying they don't know what they're doing. One question I asked when I was with these guys to myself, I said, I wonder what happened to these people when they were little or in their adult life that changed them to be so monstrous. I felt sorry for that little boys, for those little boys in them. That's how I then would see them. I would separate them, say, they are little boys. They don't know what they're doing, but the adult crazy stuff has taken over here. Something must have happened, bullying, God knows what. So I learned that people are born with purities, but life shapes them. And unfortunately, sometimes the bad experience, they can be stuck in a rut with a bad experience, and then the whole world is against them. And then sometimes people find good in bad, and they say, well, just because bad happened to me, I'm not going to treat people the same way, so I'm going to treat the opposite way. And I think that was my part of the healing process, even during that time when I was being held in there.
Well, we all make choices all the time, right? And
it's a choice.
And you can go one way, you can go the other way. And you were held for 6 months. Were there other people held in that same building with you, or were you alone?
I was alone. I've never heard anyone else but the soldiers. Yeah, no one else. And then one day my dad managed to gather some funds, cash in this case, and he managed to find out where I was, because clearly he went and searched at the police station, even in that great mess of war. He thought that maybe that's where I've been taken. And somebody was kind enough, the Serbian guys that worked at the station, they said, we know you, we're very sorry what's happening. We don't want this to happen, but we've got the rule, the from above, all the requests, but we're going to help you track her down. And they said, we can't get involved because it's the recruits from the army, so you're going to have to do it alone, but we're going to find out where she is. And so with that help, my dad managed to find out my location, and he turned up. And when the soldiers came in that day into the room, they said, come on, it's for real. Today, somebody's here to see you. I said, I'm not getting up because they're going to beat me up. And he said, come on, it's for real. I was like, what? So I got up, and he sort of held me to walk, because I was skin and bones, and I was ruined. My dad didn't recognize me. His face as a doctor, he was just like, I could see his face, and I thought his face was because maybe my mum has died. I looked at him, he looked at me. I couldn't say anything. I just said it in Albanian because I didn't want them to find out what I was saying. I said, Dad, what took you so long? He looked at me and said, can we just go now? So he paid them. I said, where are we going? Is my mum dead? Is that why you're taking me? And where is she? Why is she not with us? He took me out, and it was so bright. And you have to remember, I hadn't seen natural light for 6 months. It was all darkness and just artificial light when I went, when they were showering me and abusing me. So when I walked outside, I had to close my eyes. I couldn't see. It was so bright. My dad covered my face, and he dragged me into the back of the car, and I just lied down with a blanket covering my face, and I kept saying, Dad, is she dead? He's like, she's not dead, okay? Just quiet, relax, I've got you. So he took me home, and to my surprise, the situation had calmed down a little bit, so there wasn't bombing happening. And my mom had managed to go upstairs, and she had cooked some food that I really like. I couldn't eat because I had shrunk. Sure, my stomach had shrunk, and I said to my mom, I just want to lie down next to you, Mom. And she said, well, we need to bath you first, my darling. We need to change these clothes. And I mean, I must have been really smelly because during these 6 months I had my monthly cycle. I had to just be. They didn't provide anything for me. My room was my bathroom. My room was everything. That's where I was eating, sleeping, and whatever I needed to do, it was there. God. So she bathed me and covered me, put me down next to her. She said, "You don't want to eat anything?" I said, "I just want to rest." And I fell asleep on her lap. She tried to give me some stuff to eat. I just couldn't. I ate a little bit, like just to make her happy. But I was like, "Mom, I can't." I fell asleep, and as the darkness fell, I woke up a bit in shock, like I didn't know where I was. And she's like, "It's okay, you're with me." And my dad was whispering, "Come on, it's time, it's time." I'm like, "Dad, time for what?" You know, Ralph, I had grown tired of these rules, of these time frames, of this movement. I just wanted to die in peace. And I was in their arms. I was done. I think maybe I would have even passed away just in her arms, because finally I was at where I wanted to be, in her arms. And he's going, "Come on, it's time, it's time." Mama is like, "It's time." I said, "Okay, it's time for what?" I said, "Are we going somewhere?" "You are, we're not." I'm like, "I'm not leaving without you ever again, like you are." And so I said, "Okay, for the last time, I'm not going to speak back at you guys. I've never spoken, but I'm never going to."
Yeah. So you're back home, you're in your mom's lap, and then it's night and they tell you, "Okay, you have to go," which is like the last thing that you want to do, because now you're home safe. And so what happens? What happens next?
Well, I was really worried because I heard my dad speak to the soldiers and say, "Look, you've got the money.
Yeah.
This is only to bail her out for 24 hours. I'll bring her back.
Yeah.
I promise with my life she's coming back."
Oh, so this was back when he first took you. He said
he was
that.
saying all of this to the soldiers, and I'm thinking, when he told me at home, "Oh, come on, it's time to go," I'm like, okay, if we're going back to the prison, that's fine. But I knew they were up to something. I just knew, because my mom had a bag, and because the little bag that I had when they took me, I just dropped it in the garden. So she had found Brian's and Peter's numbers and everything, and pictures, and she wanted to know all about them. She said, "I found some stuff in your bag. I'm sorry I went through your bag." But I said, "Mom, it's okay." I said, "They're my friends. I wanted to tell you so much about them." And I said, they just gave me shelter. I didn't have much time to speak to her. And then she had made this little bag for me, and that's the bag that I was to take with me. She said, "In the bag, I put a number. When you reach a destination, you'll know." I'm like, "What destination?" She said, "You will know. I'm not going to give you too much in advance because you're going to start panicking. But she said, you'll know when is your final destination. This is when you need to use this number." And I said, "Mom, okay, whatever you say. I just hope I'm doing the right thing this time." She said, "You are. We are this time as well." And she said, "We might not see each other again." She said, "We are so proud of you, and
oh my God,
you've been so strong, and everything you've put you through. And please forgive me." She said, she said, "I would have chosen myself instead of you every time." I said, "Mom, it's fine. I'm fine." And then my dad as well. And I said goodbye to my mom at home, and I looked at her face. I'm so close to my mom. I said, "I'm never going to see her again." She put some pictures inside just so I remember her face, because she didn't know if I ever go back. And my dad is walking me down this lane from our house. It just leads into the fields. And slowly we're walking, and he's carrying me. He's like, "How are you feeling? Are you having any pain?" So he's asking me medical stuff. I said, "Dad, I'm okay. I just don't know why we are doing this. I want to stay with you." He said, "Look, just do me a favor." He said, "I haven't got a child to lose. And if you just take this one last step, my wishes would come true." I said, "Dad, everything I've done is for us, so whatever it takes, but I'm not ready for this." He said, "You okay?" So he took me to this motorway, which is still there, the motorway back home, and there was a big truck, and it was a foreign driver. Mm-hmm. And I looked, I'm like, oh my God, another man. I looked at my dad, he's like, it's all good. Just get in the truck. And he said, he doesn't speak our language. So he said, if you need anything, just do this. And he'll stop. And I said, okay, it's a timeout kind of thing. I said, okay. And he gave me this little bag and he said, you'll be absolutely fine this time. He said, third time lucky, okay? I said, okay, Dad. And I hugged him so much. And I said, I'm very sorry. I said, I feel like I've caused all of this. Because Ralph, as a victim of anything, whether it's through war or domestic abuse, the victim will always feel ashamed. And I want people to understand this. If you're a victim of anything, you're going to feel ashamed and you're going to blame yourself. But I stand here alive and strong. And I can tell you one thing. It is not your fault. You're just going to have to forgive them and move on with your life. That's the best advice I can give someone. Just forgive and move on. And so I go into this truck. The door shuts and I look at my dad on the mirror outside and I could just see him waving and the truck takes off. The truck was going through Serbia, through the heart of Serbia, and then into sort of, I think, Bulgaria, Hungary, and then it was taking through Europe. It was about to travel. It was an import-export. God knows how he ended up there. What I think these things were still happening. I'm not sure. But I was in there, and then I was with his driver, so we couldn't speak. We just looked at each other, and he was actually a really nice guy. He was Spanish.
Okay.
And I didn't see much of the journey. I slept most of the time. One thing led to another. We just stopped sometimes. I didn't know which country we were in. Eventually, he wakes me up just before we hit Calais in France. And he tells me to climb on the top bed. He unfolded the top bed. I didn't even know it was a bed. He said, you lie down. So he's gesturing, but I have to speak it out as if he's saying it to me. He said, you lie down here, up here. And he's telling me with his finger like across my mouth, shh, don't say anything. I'm like, okay. So I go up there. He folds the bed into a sausage. So he doesn't leave the bed open. So I have to go on my side. Then he folds the bed. And then he puts loads of stuff on top of me. I can hardly breathe. And I'm thinking, he told me to shush now. I need to suck it up. And I hear outside they asking him what he's carrying, I guess. And all he heard, because chocolate is like a universal word. Right. We use chocolate for everything. Right. And we say chocolate as well. He's saying chocolate. I'm like, okay, chocolate something. Sorry, you got to laugh sometimes. Find humor in all this ordeal. And so they say something to him, so he comes in the truck, he starts moving the truck. I can't see what's going on, but apparently we went into a ferry. The ferry that comes from Calais to Dover. I'm now freaking out because I knew we were in a ferry and I'm like, where are we? Because I didn't know where my mom and dad was sending me to. And when we got into the UK, again, he had to answer questions, and I can hear them speaking in English, which I recognize because I have been watching movies with subtitles for all my life. And they just going to him, they saying, go, go, go. That I understood. I was like, okay, so we are moving. So yeah, we reached Dover, and they say, you can go. And we drive across, and I'm still in this little sausage bed. And all of a sudden, after like 15, 20 minutes maybe, the driver stops and he puts the curtains down again. He gets me down, and then he opens the curtain to my left-hand side and he goes, welcome to England. My jaw dropped. I'm like, England? Yeah. Like, oh my God, I'm so far away. And as I look outside, I could see the ocean on my left-hand side and the white cliffs of Dover to this day. And I started crying, Ralph. I broke down into his arms and he hugged me so much. He was crying with me. Really, I can't believe how many people were moved with me on that journey, how many people I touched, how many people helped me that weren't even my kind, my flesh and blood, or religious or native of my kind, nothing to do with where I come from, yet they had a will to help. And for me, this is what I mean. A human is one who helps. We're all human, so we shouldn't let anything divide us. And so he said, okay. So he took my bag and he was searching in my bag, and I'm looking at him like, that's my bag?
Right,
but he couldn't communicate. Right. So he was looking for a phone number that my mom had put in.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and he said, this number I need to call. I'm like, okay. He called, he spoke to someone, and I'm thinking, what's going on? And then he started driving on the M25, because M25 goes all the way around London, anti-clockwise and clockwise, and we were going clockwise. And when we reached a certain petrol station, he got me out, still on the phone, and then what seemed to be a person meeting us. I looked again, and I'm looking, and I've never met this person, and I'm hesitant. He hugged me. He said, oh my God, last time I saw you were a baby. I said, Uncle? He said, yeah, it's me.
Wow.
He was my mum's first cousin. He's a psychiatrist in London, and he escaped war in Bosnia. He took the last flight from Bosnia, from Sarajevo to London as a refugee. So he really understood that I wasn't in good shape, and he saw I wasn't in good shape. So he took me under his wing and helped me, took me to his place, to make the long story short. And he said to me, look, he said the next day, we need to go to the Home Office here in London, and I need to report to the police station because, we need to tell them the truth. And right. I said, Uncle, every time I've tried to tell the truth, nobody believes me. He said, they will hear, darling. Yeah. I said, okay. And so we went the legit way, and obviously as you should. And the British governments have been amazing. I really would like to thank them publicly for giving me the second chance in life, because they granted me an indefinite leave to remain in the country within 4 to 6 months, because they had to do the due diligence and check my story was matching with everything, and that I was a political asylum seeker, and they do their job well. And I got a call that I got a indefinite leave to remain in the country. And from then on, although I was still facing post-traumatic depression, I was a mess, and I saw many therapists, and it took me ages to heal to get to where I am now. It's taken me quite some time, 15, 20 years later.
Wow.
But there was such a weight off my shoulders, and all I wanted to do is, I hope that one day I will find out what happened to my parents, and that I could tell them the story. Yeah. And then there was a happy ending in the end. My uncle managed to, after the war, settle down a bit. After a year that I've come into the UK, he managed to make contact with back home and managed to get my parents to a phone kind of local station where they can pick up the call and talk to me for the first time. And he called me, I was at school at that point. He's like, are you coming to mine tonight? I'm like, Uncle, I don't live with you anymore. It was a year on, and the governments took care of me. Yeah. So they gave me accommodation until I was on, I could get up on my feet. Yeah. He's like, no, come to mine tonight. I want you to cook for me. I was like, okay. Yeah. So I went to his house, which is in West London, in Hounslow. And he said, you're not cooking. We're going to go and eat Chinese, but I've got a phone call for you. I'm like, I still don't speak very good English, Uncle. Yeah. He's like, trust me, you're going to speak this language. And on the phone, it was just my parents. I was like, I couldn't talk. Yeah. I couldn't talk. Yeah. I was that
emotional.
shock that happens in your lungs where your breath is taken away. And I was like, oh my God. Oh, I couldn't believe. I said, Mom and Dad, I said, I don't care what's happened to me. I don't want to know anything. I just want to know that you are well and healthy and that you are okay. And they didn't tell me anything until I met them.
Yeah.
They just said we are well and healthy. And I said, okay.
Thankfully, Lurata's story has a happy ending, but thousands of other young men and women weren't so lucky. As we're watching the conflict unfold in Ukraine today, we're already hearing reports of human trafficking. It's a sad and very ugly fact of life that people are willing to take advantage of refugees and people displaced by warfare to make money. Today, Lurata speaks out bravely on their behalf, despite the fact that many of the men who victimized her are still at large, and she takes a great risk speaking out against them. So 30 years later, her search for justice still continues. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe. And make sure to tune in to the next episode of Heroes Behind Headlines.